Well, good evening. My name is Tad Monroe, and I'm the pastor here at Emmanuel. This is our Wednesday night reflection. We took a break from these for about a month to kind of recharge and regroup for those of us who were doing these. And now we'll be doing them again, carrying us through until Thanksgiving. And we'll hear some new voices among the familiar voices of me and Reverend Dave Wright, Reverend Jenny Rick Morona, and Beth Prevo. Tonight, I wanted to center our reflection on the season of fall, or autumn, or the fall equinox. There are a lot of spiritual themes, I think, that come up for us as we transition from summer to fall, and I think some of these themes might also be really relevant for those of us living in this sort of COVID reality and just the overall reality of our world and our society. The autumn equinox marks the arrival of the season of fall, which is seen as a period of changes, right, that lead to the dark of winter. Autumn's actually the beginning of our liturgical kind of year and cycle, if we look at it that way. What spiritual lessons and practices are suggested by the coming of autumn? That's some of what I want to just reflect on and think about a little bit today. The first is this concept of balancing night and day, in a sense, or darkness with light. On the autumn equinox, day and night are the equal length. And that signals the need to balance light and darkness within us. In this concept, light or dark aren't bad or good or better, but both present, both different kinds of experiences for us. Far too often we fear the dark and adore only the light. But as Joyce Rupp, a Catholic writer and poet, says, in one of her works, really challenges us to befriend darkness. She says, "I gratefully acknowledge how darkness has become less of an enemy for me and more of a place of silent nurturance, where the slow, steady gestation needed for my soul's growth can occur. Not only is light a welcome part of my life, but I am also developing a greater understanding of how much I need to befriend the dark as well." The Buddhist Gary Thorpe tells a wonderful teaching and story about accepting all situations where we're sometimes in that place of night without an answer. Once when the Zen master Tokusan was still a student, he visited his teacher Ryotan just before sundown. They sat on the floor of Ryotan's hut, casually drinking tea and discussing Zen until deep into the night. At last, Ryotan said, "Maybe it's about time you went home." Tokusan bowed to his teacher and walked to the door. "It's completely dark outside," he said. Ryotan lit the lantern and said, "Why not take this?" And just as Tokusan was about to take the lamp from his teacher's hands, Ryotan blew out the flame. Tokusan suddenly knew everything there was to know. Thorpe's comments are that sometimes there's no remedy for our situation than to begin from a point of absolute blindness or darkness. Turning off a television set and extinguishing a lantern have certain similarities. They are both abrupt and transition making and can leave us in a different world. The second theme I want to talk about after that concept of balancing night and day, darkness and light, is the practice of letting go. I think that's a lot of what we think of in fall. As we watch leaves flutter to the ground in the fall, we're reminded that nature's cycles are mirrored in our lives. Autumn is a time for letting go and releasing things that have been a burden. All the religious traditions pay tribute to that act of relinquishment. Fall's the right time to practice getting out of the way and letting the Spirit take charge of our lives. James Hillman, the kind of a contemporary depth psychologist, challenged us to learn from others about this. He says, for what the actor tries to achieve on stage is to get out of the way so that the character he or she is portraying can come fully out. So too, the writer and the painter, they have to get out of the way of the flow of the work onto the paper and the canvas. I think in many of our lives and practices, there's something about letting go, something about getting out of the way that helps us step into something new and different. Also, again, from our Buddhist tradition, within the concept of loving kindness, there's this idea that generosity has such power because it's characterized by the inner quality of letting go or relinquishing, being able to let go, to give up, to renounce, to give generously. These capacities come from the same source within us. When we practice generosity, we open to all of these liberating qualities. They carry us to a profound kind of knowing of freedom. And they also are the loving expression of that same state of freedom. Fall, then, is the perfect season to give generously of our time and our talents and what we have to others. Again, a practicing of this letting go. And the last theme I wanted to talk about in relationship to the season, to fall, is the practice of acknowledging impermanence. Autumn reminds us of the impermanence of everything. We have experienced the budding of life in spring and the flowering and fullness of summer, and now the leaves fall and bare branches remind us of the fleeting nature of all things. The Jewish rabbi and writer Harold Kushner suggests that when we contemplate fall's changes, we grow more appreciative of all the beauties that surround us. The poet Wallace Stevens, once wrote, "Death is the mother of beauty." What those words, I think, say to us is that we cherish the beauty of the sunrise, of a New England autumn, of a relationship, of the hug of someone we love, precisely because those things will not be around forever, and neither will we be around forever to enjoy them. So fall also brings home to our consciousness death and the challenge to live every day into the fullest, to really live in the present moment. There's this I think challenge of kind of a twofold moment. Susan Jeffers, in her book Embracing Uncertainty, says this: "I was once told that certain spiritual masters in Tibet used to set their teacups upside down before they went to bed each night as a reminder that all of life was impermanent. And then, when they awoke each morning, they turned their teacups over, right side up again, with the happy thought, 'I'm still here.' This simple gesture was a wonderful reminder to celebrate the moment of every day." Finally, really, in some ways, fall is about awakening the mind and opening the heart, right? This concept of impermanence, to live in the present moment, this practicing letting go, generosity, this balancing of darkness and light, of night and day, of this embracing of and not being afraid of moving into the season. When you're brave and you have an open heart, you have affection for this world, for the sunlight, this other human being, this experience. You experience it vulnerably, and when it touches your heart, you realize this world is very fleeting. So it's perfect to say hello means goodbye, and also my hope, hello again. So all of life, that's part of, I think, the beauty of the seasons in relationship to our spirituality and our liturgical calendar. And we're always moving in and out of these times of death and growth and flourishing and letting go and back to death and rebirth and growing and flourishing and letting go. That's all the cycle of life. That's so much of what our spiritual practices are about, is about engaging and being in the moment for each of those. And there's an impermanence to them all because there's this constant flow. So the invitation again this fall, as we enjoy the beauty that it brings, the cooling days, the shorter days, we embrace impermanence. We let go of what needs to be let go so we can give and be generous during this time. That we befriend the night, and the darkness, not as something to be afraid of, but knowing that we have to balance the gifts of both light and darkness, of both night and day. With that, let me pray. Gracious God, we thank you for the movements of seasons, the beauty within them, the new things that each of them calls out to us to reflect upon. This autumn, help us to enter into the night and into the darkness. Help us to let go of what needs to be let go of. Help us to remember that nothing is forever, and always there is a new day. I pray these things in your name. Amen. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week.